Oh, and the one thing when you do live to YouTube, you got to make sure that you mute it right away. Otherwise, if you've got your speaker going, you end up having some double talk. Let's see.
Okay. All right.
So we'll clip off the first little bit of the video. I'm just watching it. Oops. Can you guys hear that?
Hear what?
Oh, you couldn't hear it playing, hey? Because it's
No.
actually playing a few seconds behind. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to our, I don't know what number this is. We got to be close to be in the hundreds of meetups. It feels like it anyways. But middle of April, and here we are again. Next slide, please, Lawrence. Welcome to our Cardano4Climate month weekly meetup. Our agenda today is pretty light. We have a update on our monthly event coming up. Matera will be here, Daniel, to update what's going on there. I have an update on the story of Pike in Malawi. And then we just check in and find out if there's anything else going on around Cardano. And today we have Douglas from the Blockchain Research Institute. Next slide, please. Our mission is making the world work better for all people, animals, and the planet. Next slide. And here we are in 2023. Started in August 2021. Next slide, please. I believe this is, you can play this video. This has to do with our promotion for the monthly event.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and do I need to mute my own volume, or do you think, well, I guess try it.
It's just opened up amazing opportunities for collaboration, which is ultimately what Cardano4Climate is really about.
So if you have an impact project and you want to learn more, I'd highly recommend just popping in and saying hello, and you will meet friends for life.
So this little promo comes from the Cardano Summit. Yoram was there in Geneva, hosted this amazing event, and that's the clips from it. So our meetups are actually, our monthly meetups are going to be on Zoom. Someday we'll be in person, but not in the near future. Next slide, please. And Yoram, if you want to, oops, I think you, yeah, here we go. You may be in a vicious loop there with the video. Yoram, do you want to take over?
Yeah, we have, so we initiated, it's something that was in our mind for a long time and started last month, is basically one of our key objectives for this year is collaboration. And one way to do it is going out of, our community and kind of bringing together all the impact communities and projects across Cardano for a monthly update. And the idea really is that every month we come together, we are able to update each other about what we did last month, what we are going to do this month, what we need and how can we help, right? And kind of have a format where you have a key presenter, and then anyone that wants to present, and then a common slide deck for anyone that wants to put there as updates with breakout rooms, and it's quite cool. We kicked it off last month, the first time. This month is the second month. We are thrilled to present the project done by Raz and Cole from Sustainable ADA about the impact report of 2022 and 23. Incredible job, and they will be the keynote speaker there. And yeah, everyone that sees that, we already have quite a lot of people coming on board and interested to participate. And so not only Project Catalyst, IOG, CF, Imago, Cardano Sports, and different projects we're working on Cardano. Yeah, so that's happening next week. the last Tuesday of every month. So it's 25th of April. I missed anything, Melanie?
No, just the next slide. It's part of the impact report. Is called Recalibrating Value, Identity, and Impact Through Blockchain. Cole and Raz have been working on this for 10 months, quite a in-depth document. And yeah, it's looking like it'll be quite interesting to find out more and make more connections. I think that's it. So now it'll be over to Daniel for a quick update on Metera.
Just before that, I see here obviously Daniel, fill up to present on the next month, like we did last month, Afia with WADA and Goma Pool and CNC and Ryan and obviously Lawrence. I mean, everyone that have something to present. I think it's very important. That's it. Metera.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we released our demo for initial testing to users last Friday. It went really well. We also updated our roadmap for the rest of the year and published it yesterday. Right now, the demo works with dummy money or dummy assets. In the next 2 months, we want to launch a test. So yeah, we're pretty excited for what's coming, been getting a lot of support from the community, which is always nice. And yeah, on May, I think we're gonna do a more public fundraising to push the project to the next stage, which is the testnet and the upcoming ISPO of our project. Also, we are starting to work with Sustainable ADA, or starting to talk with Sustainable ADA on the possibility of creating an impact portfolio within the platform, where we will be using for the first time our impact measurement system. And I think that's something we can work alongside Cardano4Climate and would be nice for everyone.
So Daniel, how do people connect with you? How do we get onto this demo? Tell us more. How do we connect?
So I saw Newman, if it's not a testnet, where is it now? Right now, it is not connected to a testnet environment. So it is just a demo with dummy assets. We get the pricing of all of the assets from an API, and we simulate the experience of what's going to happen with the smart contract. We can't release a testnet right now because the smart contract that we developed almost a year ago is not updated to the latest hard fork, which was Vasil. We have to update it into Vasil and then connect it to a testnet. And the best way, I'll send the links in a moment, is connecting through us on Discord. This testnet is only for some users which are helping us test the platform out. So we're doing a bunch of activities within the Discord to give out some access codes, and we'll start to ramp up pretty quickly the amount of users and codes that we're providing. It's just that we are receiving the first bugs and fixes and working on fixing those before we make a more public approach to the access codes.
But right now we can the public, just me and Melanie and Lawrence and Daniel, all the gang here can do a simulated thing. It's not on the chain, it's et cetera, it's just on a database and APIs and stuff. Yeah,
right now it's simulated. Like I said, so the next step would be transitioning into a testnet. We have the smart contract that does what Metera does, which is basically creating basket of assets and tokenizing those. But the smart contract is not on the current version of Vasil. So we need to fundraise money before we are able to transition into a testnet. So one of the main strategies for us was, before we went into any kind of public fundraising, to deliver an MVP as a demo that showcases how it works. It tracks the ETFs or basket of portfolios that are going to be launched in the platform on testnet and mainnet. So users can start seeing how those basket of assets behave themselves with the market and what are the benefits.
That's going to be fun. I'm curious to get in there and check out these baskets of assets, ETFs, and see the interface. You know, I think it could be really cool.
Yeah, I'll be sending out some codes. We just need to fix some stuff. We've been less than a week out. I think today we're gonna be pushing some major fixes, and later this week we will be doing a more public release of the access codes to receive more feedback.
So I
Awesome.
dropped the link into the Matera Discord because that's the best place to connect with you, right, Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, this link expires in 7 days. So in case anybody doesn't use it up right away, it'll turn into a little turd. But that's where you're going to get your codes in the meantime, right?
Yes. Also, I'm planning next week, maybe in the next meeting, just to ask if anyone is interested, and I can send them codes privately.
Perfect. I just wanted to check in with Afia. Do you have any updates? Maybe you're driving too. That's often what happens. Any quick updates on WADA? Just double check.
Yeah.
Can you stop?
Sorry.
Just a sec, Afia. Can you stop screen share?
Right now I'm in the house. Just I don't have power, so I'm using my phone. And if it goes off, then that is it. But yeah, WADA Global is trying to coordinate all the other hubs in each country to come out with a business plan model. Looking at the way Fund 9 went, we realized that it will not be ideal to rely only on catalyst funding to run various hubs. So each hub is supposed to come up with what they think it's they sell best, what is ideal for them to put it into a business plan, and then we'll see how we'll develop the sustainability of the various hubs. So that's what we are in the middle of doing. We've been having a weekly workshop together, the various hub leads, to come up with what we can do in our various hubs to sustain it. And we will be having our quarterly meeting at the end of this month, where each hub will come give us details of what we've done so far. So I'll take this opportunity to invite you all to come, and then you would know what each hub is doing. It will be very interesting because each hub had developed it. The date is the last Saturday, I think 29th April. But then I'm sure we'll be putting the links and the invites in the various groups. I'll make sure I send one to C4C group so that
can you also add an update in our monthly meetup, just so that we can send more people? I'm going to just copy this in. If you can see it, hopefully you can see it on your phone. Otherwise, I can send it to you on Telegram. It's a sign-up form to present. And this happens, the event will be 25th of April. You could send a recording if you can't make it there.
I've seen the monthly meetup. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've even shared it. I've shared it on my Facebook page, I've shared it on Twitter. I've shared it on LinkedIn. I've shared it all over the place.
Thank you.
So I will. But then the monthly meetup will come before our program.
True, but do you want other people to come to your program on the 29th?
Yes.
Okay, so let us help you promote it so that people show up and get a bigger idea of what's going on with WADA. The whole intention of this meetup is to give a little bit so that people can connect to what's going on in the wider impact community, because we're spread out.
At this point, I apologize that I think this year I've only been to the impact meeting. I've not been able to participate fully in the weekly meeting.
Do not worry. We have limited time. We have limited resources, and it's life. We're here for the long term. We're here when you need us. Newman, did you want to say something?
Well, no, just I'm really looking forward to going to that monthly or that quarterly event. Those WAD events are really pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other issue, Jerome, I wanted to discuss with you whether we can start the C4C for Africa on a low key, maybe a monthly meeting.
Right. Is there a way?
Yeah.
Okay, Yoram, go take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's a great idea. I mean, if you want to initiate that, definitely we'll be happy to join it and see how to support. We can even have to start with a monthly meeting for Africa, but on Wednesday, one of the Wednesday maybe, just as an idea, or we have a separate one. I mean, definitely. Tell me how you want to do it, and we will help you. Definitely.
The other thing is we could take over our monthly impact meeting and just collaborate with WADA on it and have a focus on Africa. Instead of creating more work or another attention grabbing event, we can actually, why not join forces?
Okay, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. So maybe if you want to even plan May, so the last Tuesday of May would be when we would have it scheduled. It is at this point 8 p.m. UTC. That's a very flexible time too. So let's join heads and hearts on this one.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got 8 minutes. I'm going to, Lawrence, if you don't mind just sharing that screen again, or Newman, did you want to say something?
No, just happy. I was like, ooh, getting to the good spot. I'm really looking forward to hearing from Douglas.
Fabulous. Okay, well, in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pike, Malawi, and Cyclone Freddy. And it feels like we're writing this story. Lawrence, I'm going to fly through these slides because I don't want to give away kind of the punchline on this. Next slide, please. It feels like we're writing chapters on Pike's story. We've known him for quite a while, and now we have a call for help when it came to Cyclone Freddy. I did a little research. I had no idea how bad this storm was or how widespread it is. And you know, it happened February, March 2023. Wow, that's feels like a long time ago, but the impact of it is long term. Next slide, please. So we've sent a little bit of help. Just, you know what, we could go through and figure out how to do it perfectly. It's like, we know we can send Pike some ADA, he turns it into US dollars, and within a week he's got a local currency, he's got supplies, and he goes to homes to help. Next slide, please. We also have a on-chain application, Open Litter Map, which is how we met Pike to begin with. Sean has gone ahead and created, which we've been able to do all along. We can create custom tags to trace impact on the ground. Next slide, please. So now we can use real data and show where environmental data disaster happens, where the impact is going, where the gifts are going. We've got GPS locations and pictures. Next slide, please. You can actually go on Open Litter Map, click on these icons, and you can see the pictures and read about it. Next slide, please. Pike is in the process of working on becoming a non-governmental organization, an NGO. Next slide, please. There's a few hurdles with that. One of them was having enough to pay for the legal fees to do this. And Dan, who initiated this whole process, continues to tweak. Next slide, please. So, you know, right now we have off-chain information. Next slide. A few spreadsheets. And we're working with Pike to figure out what it is that we require from him, what information, and how we can make this both on-chain and off-chain and continue with this story. Now, so there was $100 that we needed. Next slide, please. Next slide. Marcus from Larissa Health, who works with midwives in Malawi. This is really cool because I was talking to Sean and he said, you know, a year ago when he created Open Litter Map, he had no idea what applications would come of it. And here we are working on an application to give relief during natural disasters. Larissa Health comes along into this collaboration and they work with midwives. And they have something going on in Malawi. And now there's this process where they are going to actually donate the $100 that Pike needs to process the papers for becoming an NGO. So with this help and this collaboration, we're starting to see this story come together. Next slide, please. You don't have to play this. It's something that Dan has brought up, multi-sig wallets. It's something that's we're quite possibly going to pursue ourselves as a blockchain element when we receive funds. Right now we get funds, we send it to Pike, he turns it into stuff. If it gets any kind of bigger and to be more legitimate, we will have to go into something else. Next slide, please. And so there's information about the roundtable multi-sig wallet that we are looking at working with. And I believe that's the end of Pike's story, if I'm not mistaken. And next is, what do we got going there? Maybe anybody else can jump in and just say what you've been hearing, what's going on.
Let me want to stop sharing. How are we doing for time there, Melanie?
We've got 3 minutes before bottom of the hour when Douglas will be taking us through. And
okay.
We've got other slides, but we don't need to show them.
Right, okay. Forgot to mention, so yeah, LitterCoin itself actually is going live on mainnet this Thursday, the 20th. So we're just working with Sean, and we're going to get the deployment's finished, but you know, all our testing looks good, so that's really cool. And everyone's quite excited that it's a great real world, you know, use application of incentivizing people to pick up litter around the world. And again, he's got thousands of users, you know, not all active at one time, but they're getting, you know, people are getting excited about that. And just for everyone's benefit, again, there's a mechanism that through a smart contract that donations can happen. And then people get those LitterCoin, you know, tokens as part of collecting images for trash. And if they get enough of them, they get a LitterCoin, and then they can redeem it at zero waste stores. So you have to have a special merchant token. And what Sean and the whole team has done is they've created an incentivized climate economy, basically, to have people help fix the planet and then incentivize people to actually buy stuff at zero waste stores. So anyway, it's a new era from Open Litter Map, and LitterCoin is the on-chain kind of piece of it. Open Litter Maps, Sean has had that project since for a long time. 2015 is when I think he started it, and he's had this idea for quite some time. And then obviously I connected with him last summer, and I built the smart contract piece, and we've made it work. So fingers crossed. Okay.
So it's a story that we're writing again. You know, it's chapters and sequels and other templates that we can use. very exciting. You've given us the Coles note on what's going on, but there's so much more to this story about Open Litter Map.
Absolutely. And I think, Melanie, I think absolutely. So I will definitely get Sean and probably myself, but primarily Sean, to come in and give an overview, and either one of your monthly meetups would make sense, or even this weekly, but monthly probably would be good to have a good segment on Open Litter Map and LitterCoin launch. So
For sure on the monthly.
Sure.
And weekly anytime, for sure. All right, so I believe we're open now. Any other, before we got 1 minute, and then we're handing it over to you, Douglas, to talk about what you're up to. Lawrence is very excited about this, and it's really interesting because I've been fearful of opening this up to signups for people, and it's people that I don't know. And then when I hear about what's going on, because it's brought in by somebody else we trust, somebody hears about something and it comes in, and then it blows my mind how many different possibilities we have because we start talking about what we're doing and what we're passionate about. So with that being said, I'm really looking forward to what you have and what you're doing. So Lawrence, do you want to say anything else? Maybe introduce how.
Doug, introduce. I just met Doug a week or two ago, just briefly, and I like what he had to say, and I wanted him to just come here and share some of his experiences and his views on basically blockchain being used for impact projects. So Doug, over to you.
Super. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to join you here today. Just to put some context to this, sorry. I ran into Lawrence at a meetup, regenerative finance meetup, and it was kind of inspiring to see a whole bunch of very well-meaning, principled, eager people getting together to talk about how to deploy technology in ways that are impactful and that hopefully will leave us with a planet that the generations that follow us have the opportunity to enjoy. But it struck me in the meeting that, we still have a bit of a communication problem, right? So they're, articulating in very clear and concise ways what this is all about and what its potential is. We still have a bunch of challenges there. So Lawrence invited me to come and kind of share some of our experiences and thoughts. And so I just kind of threw a bunch of charts together here that I'll share with you. Let's see here, slideshow, play from start. Okay, so can you guys see this? Yep. Yes, you can see it. Okay, great. So first of all, for those of you who don't know, the Blockchain Research Institute is the world's largest independent think tank on Web3 technologies and their impact on business and society. We work with platforms, we work with companies, we work with governments and civil society institutions all around the world, academic institutions. And we basically act as an accelerator, a catalyst to try to kind of sit in between the potential of the Web3 platform and the reality of companies and governments and the like, trying to implement actual solutions. And we try to, help bridge those two things together. So we basically run around the world sprinkling pixie dust and hoping for the best. This particular area, I know all of you have a certain, passion for. I've got children and hope to have grandchildren at some point in my life. And I feel a sense of responsibility that my generation, or my parents' generation, exploited resources to dramatically improve their quality of life. And that there have been consequences because, quite frankly, we weren't quite aware of the impact that we were having when we were, kind of building the kind of economy that we've built. And, but also realizing that we didn't necessarily have, first of all, that awareness. And second of all, a lot of the tools and technologies that are going to allow us to do something about it. So I thought I'd just put together a few thoughts about how, I think of this space and ways of kind of talking about it with other people so that we can encourage people to become involved in these projects and becoming part of the solution. So first of all, a bit of a disclosure. Cardano is a member of the Blockchain Research Institute, and I personally hold ADA. So for what it's worth, that's my disclosure going forward. There are a lot of challenges, obviously, that we face, and there are obviously the climate change, and this is both an existential threat, but it's also a great opportunity because, increasingly the marginal voices that think that it's all a scam and some sort of conceit or conspiracy are falling by the wayside, and it's becoming increasingly clear that this is a very real problem that we need to do something about. And in many ways, it's a lot of other issues that we really should cope with can be kind of attached to the societal initiatives, the societal momentum that we have around climate change. And so it really is both a threat and an opportunity. There's issues of pollution. Agricultural productivity is a huge issue. We're in the midst of going through an absolutely historic transformation in our energy infrastructure, which we're going to have to watch very carefully and encourage the right kind of health behaviors. We're on the precipice, and we're already starting to see some real crises around environmental migration. And this is something we definitely need to not only try to mitigate its worst effects, but we're going to have to figure out how to deal with the reality that there are going to be an awful lot of people on the planet that are displaced and disadvantaged and impacted. We see when I was giving a conference or a keynote speech at an energy conference down in Houston, and that morning, the headline was that 3/4 of Pakistan was underwater, and it kind of blew my mind. And I was trying to think of what the consequences would be of 3/4 of a country being underwater and what impact it would have on people and business and civil society. And the consequences are just beyond my meager imagination. And finally, we've got, not finally, but amongst this list, we've also got the issues of, biosphere viability and diversity. And so these are some of the challenges that we all face, and we all know this. The interesting component of this whole equation isn't that we just kind of have to run around going, oh no, the sky's falling. But we really need to kind of step back and say, what can we do about it? And one of the most important developments is that there's this emerging technology platform that is affording us some very powerful new tools. And this platform, this new Web3 platform, incorporates kind of four major components. One of its greatest innovations, of course, is blockchain technology, which allows the state, the record of transactions, to become an inherent characteristic of an underlying network and base infrastructure, which kind of supports the emergence of ecosystems in ways we haven't seen before, and allows for radical composability of systems. We also have artificial intelligence, which is going to be playing an increasingly important role, and we could do a whole other session on that. The ability to measure and actuate through IoT, as well as the ability to visualize using spatial UX technologies and augmented and virtual realities. So we've got this group of technologies that are affording us some tools to do something about this problem. Chief among them is the blockchain's ability to support tokenization. And there's lots of different kinds of tokens, but these tokens have the ability to tokenize things and to have collective confidence in the digital scarcity of tokens has really important potential impact that I'm afraid far too few people really appreciate. The first is it starts to allow us to incorporate externalities into economics and into marketplaces. One of the biggest problems that we've had is the market is an amazingly efficient way to deploy capital in the creation of value and profits. But so much of that economic activity doesn't incorporate the many externalities we have of the longer term impact of certain economic exploitations and we don't factor in the costs of cleaning stuff up and dealing with pollution and dealing with the consequences of climate change. And so the ability to count stuff starts to become important. And once you can start counting stuff, and I've got supporting, issues like, the measurements and verification systems, that this becomes a truly a potentially powerful tool, because it starts to allow us to exchange value. It starts just to we start to be able to kind of figure out what the real value of having carbon sinks in rainforests or boreal forests, what that is, and incorporating them into our decision making. So being able to count stuff, measure stuff, and then being able to ledger that counting to tokenize and ascribe value to those externalities and incorporate them into economic decision making as part of the market mechanism is a really radically powerful and new tool that we have. And so that's pretty exciting. It also affords us the ability to have confidence in data and underlying auditing. I mentioned its ability to support the coordination and enablement of ecosystems and the coordination of the various different players in an ecosystem. And as a kind of an adjunct to that, allowing for new distributed governance models that will allow new configurations that I think should be much more adaptive to a rapidly evolving and changing background. And I think that that's going to be important, that the ability for large companies or even large nation states to react to what it might be very local sort of situations is somewhat limited. And, having systems that allow for ecosystems to be composed and decomposed and reconfigured, and having, new kinds of governance structures over top of those ecosystems is a new and powerful tool that we really have to figure out how to leverage. I kind of look at this new emerging space that we refer to as regenerative finance, which I think is a powerful concept. And I've been trying to figure out how to articulate what this is really all about. And I really think it's the combination of three major things. It's the combination of the circular economy and some of the economic theory around designing for circularity, and kind of thinking through all the various different life cycle attributes of goods and services, combined with the crypto economics and the decentralized finance capabilities that we're having, the various different efficiencies and flexibilities that are inferred from that environment, combined with some social and cultural developments, things like the solar punk movement and things like these meetup groups that where people that are really trying to figure out how to be impactful and how to leverage technology and collective energies can leverage the new tool set that we have to really make a difference. And I see these things kind of combining into this new space that's known as regenerative finance, that starts to combine principles with economics and marketplaces and social imperatives, and kind of groups them all together. Of course, like any definition, this is somewhat imperfect, but I just find this kind of a useful way of discussing the landscape. Cardano is like a number of organizations, positioning themselves as being an agent of positive global change. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I've talked to Charles and Tamara and a lot of the Cardano organization, and these are incredibly bright and principled people, and they really want to make a difference. They're not unique in that, and that's a good thing, but they are an important part of this broader landscape that is emerging. Then there's the actual platform itself. Sorry. And for a long time, there was a very fair argument, specifically because of its use of the proof of staking consensus mechanism, that Cardano was one of the most, eco-friendly, environmentally sustainable cryptocurrencies and crypto platforms out there. The reality is that is changing a little bit. There are yes, it is 47,000 times more efficient per transaction than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin isn't a smart contract platform, and you're not deploying regenerative finance applications on top of the Bitcoin network. But there are other platforms out there. Hedera, who's also a member of the Blockchain Research Institute, they're not technically a blockchain, they're a distributed ledger using a gossip protocol, but they're actually incredibly energy efficient, and and also making a play into this sustainability impact space, and using their transaction costs and transaction of energy efficiency as part of that messaging. And I think we should applaud and encourage that. Ethereum itself now has a very exciting and vibrant community that is pursuing these kinds of impact projects, and they've made dramatic advances with the merge and moving to a proof of stake mechanism that's allowing them to run transactions much more energy efficiently. So the big kind of mythos around blockchain consuming the electricity of major Eastern European countries, I think that we're moving beyond that. A lot of the source of the electricity is increasingly becoming sustainable, as well as the fact the energy consumption on a transaction basis is falling quite a bit. So we're making a lot of progress there. On top of these platforms, we're seeing a number of different projects emerge, right? So these are some of the ones that the Cardano community has kind of put into play around some of the sustainability goals of the United Nations. And I think this is great. Now, there's not a lot of them yet, right? So this really is, needs to be a community initiative where we, bring bright people together and create the energy to support these projects and encourage these projects, and create and encourage the Cardano developers to add capabilities that allow these impact projects to flourish on the platform. So this is a start, but this is the start of a very long and very important journey, and we need to make progress. I alluded to the fact that there are a number of different platforms that are doing very similar sorts of things, right? So there's the climate change challenge and the Cardano ecosystem. There's various different sustainability initiatives and projects going on in the Ethereum ecospace. Celo is doing some really interesting work and kind of taking this down to a mobile personal impact, and with allusions to citizen scientists and having impact on an individual basis. And Hedera is making a very big play around this space to basically say, we're a really strong platform for implementing impact projects and creating, extensions and that enable those platforms. And, you can do the Guardian projects is a good example of that. So, this is, I think, an exciting time. And we do face a number of different adoption challenges. The technology is immature. The markets are, immature and volatile, and they still lack kind of confidence that we need to really start to work very strongly on the measurement and verification parts of the equation, so that markets can start to have confidence that things aren't just being, marketing greenwashed, and that these markets for these externalized credits are real marketplaces, and that you can ascribe real value to them because you've got confidence in them. So there's real work to be done there, but I'm optimistic that we're going to see progress there. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty. I think we all need to, as we develop these projects, we need to keep an eye out to how we develop them in alignment with existing regulations, and how we identify regulations that need to be modernized, and then surface those needs to policymakers. And once again, this is a role that we help play as well. So, if someone comes up with we need to make this argument to this government or whatever, we have capacity to package that and to participate in that process and hopefully make it more successful. We are up against some entrenched interests. As I said, I do a lot of work in the oil and gas and the transactive energy sector. And at the very top tier, right, the Exxon Mobils and the Shells and the ConocoPhillips and Chevrons, there is very much a sincere, interest and desire and a lot of resource being deployed to decarbonize while accepting the reality, for at least for the short term, that the world has need of the resources they're producing. But there is a large second tier, a very, very long tail of energy companies that are just all about pulling as much oil out of the ground and using it as quickly as possible and monetizing it for the interests of investors. And we just have to recognize that that is so, and work on, education and work on regulation and work on creating economically attractive, viable alternatives, which is really the only way we're going to really change the world. This idea of incorporating externalities in the marketplace, I think, is both a challenge and an opportunity, and something we really need to start, articulating its power. That, we're not against markets. In fact, quite the contrary, we're for markets, and markets have not been efficient. They've not functioned as seamlessly and, without friction, because they've got this blind spot. And that's just a reality that we've never had before, the ability to measure and to account for those externalities and incorporate them in decision-making. Well, we start to be able to do that now. And I think that's an important thing we need to build on. Building ecosystems and coalescing groups like this is difficult. But once again, we have tools that we've never had before. And we've got greater ability to align interest, and education is a very big part of that. So I strongly encourage efforts to educate people and help them get intellectual frameworks and scaffolding, so that as they're exposed to these new ideas and this new technology, that, coupled with their sense, hopefully, of wanting to live on a sustainable planet, that they've got that scaffolding and framework that they can assemble a whole bunch of ideas and put them into some sort of cohesive way of looking at the world. And then, of course, we just have to deal with the continuous whack-a-mole of managing the flow of misinformation and misconceptions. And this is going to be hard work, largely because, we do have these miracles like ChatGPT that allow us to, leverage these incredibly strong tools to make us much more productive. But there is a negative consequence that people with entrenched interests or fringe interests have the ability to create incredibly powerful and impactful disinformation in order to disrupt our progress towards these very necessary goals, and with great credibility. And one of my biggest fears is that, number one, we're going to have to deploy an awful lot of energy to identify that misanthropic, malicious misinformation, and at the same time that there's perfectly reasonable people whose confidence in people's expressions of what are actually true statements are going to be incredibly skeptical of the truth, because they fear that, quite reasonably, that this is yet part of another AI engineered disinformation campaign. And so, as we kind of move into a world of increasing distrust in what most of us would consider as kind of obvious facts, doing that stakeholder alignment is going to become increasingly difficult. And so these are all challenges that we need to deal with and have our eyes open about. So that was just some of the ideas and thoughts that I thought I'd kind of, throw out there as just a context framing of some of the important and good work that you guys are doing.
Wow, great presentation, a great talk there, Doug. This is, again, just you bring it all home on all the things that we're talking about in this community, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here, is just that for our community to see that we're not alone in these issues, and to see that there are people like you and your company, and obviously other ecosystems have similar challenges, and but you know, they're solvable, but they're hard, as you mentioned. So I thought that was great. I'll let anyone else comment too. Thank you, Doug.
My pleasure.
I love the idea, and thank you, Doug. I love the idea of education as providing an intellectual framework to sort of take in all of this. It's like a stance towards the information economy, to symbol a cohesive and worldview, as opposed to it sort of cracking down and you know, not having a stable base like that as a goal of education. So that was a big takeaway, and I'm definitely going to research DMRV. I also loved how you explained regenerative finance, refi, as the circular economy, DeFi, and then this culture of the cultural components, social components, and like solar punk. Really wonderful. Lots of gems in this talk. Thank you. That was a very well done presentation.
So I'm curious about what we've got going with Pike in Malawi. You know, we've got this very small seed planted of something that could be much bigger. I hear regulation. I hear the threat of AI messing this up. We know Pike. We know how to do this. How do we get this right? You know, how do we make this system the best that it can be, the most transparent, the most efficient?
Well, you know, obviously need smart people to build good systems. That's kind of the easy part. I think the bigger part is to profile interesting stories and give those stories a platform and expose them to an audience. People like stories, right? Human beings, we've been adapted, or it's in our genetics. You know, we are storytelling and story receiving, you know, constructs. That's just part of our basic identity. And I think that we do need to tell these stories. I mean, for example, I host the Web3 and Blockchain Talks, W3B Talks podcast, right? I would love to have someone on to talk about that project and just have a conversation and put it out there. And we're the 60th most listened to podcast in Ukraine right now for some strange reason. I have no idea why, but go figure. And so I just run a teeny little podcast with a very modest size audience, but you need to start telling the stories, and it's going to take telling them a few times to refine the story, right? To really figure out what the important story elements are, where the drama is, who the characters are, right? It's not just kind of showing up and saying, here are the specs. To capture people's imagination, to help them understand, goes to that scaffolding question. You need to equip them with the scaffolding, and then you need to tell them interesting stories about interesting people doing interesting and impactful things. And those stories are going to serve two purposes, right? One, it might, you know, attract someone to say, hey, you know what, that particular thing is really interesting and I want to get involved. I want to support it. I want to fund it. I want to, you know, evangelize it, whatever. But almost more importantly, it serves the purpose of inspiring people, right? That if these people can do that there for this little thing, right? What could I do? You know, this problem isn't going to be solved by big governments and even groups of people gathering in Davos, kind of charting out the course of the world. It's ultimately going to be solved by just millions and millions of small groups of people that are worried about their local beach being cleaned up, right? They're worried about, you know, the impact of a small oil spill on the local wildlife. They're worried about, it's going to be the composite of a whole bunch of those community-oriented things. So telling stories that can inspire people and let them know that it's not just, we don't throw our hands up and say, oh, you know, these problems are way too big for me to do something about. They're not, right? That we all can be part of a little solution and those little solutions in composite will be part of solving the big problem, providing the big solution.
Douglas, it feels like you've just confirmed we're on the right path. really thank you for that. This theme of writing Pike's story has come up in the last month and a half, and recognizing that it is something interesting. It's not something you can duplicate from AI. It's real life. It's
well, as
happens.
I said, I would be delighted to have someone on to tell the story, and we can use.
I have a feeling though, because you said your second greatest audience is in Ukraine.
No, I didn't say that. I just said that I just got a note the other day from the metrics people.
But that's okay, because this connects to Open Litter Map again, and hopefully Yoram will pipe in on this, because one of our events last year was our sustainability goals events. We had Yosef, who has a satellite imagery, and he's from the Ukraine. He showed up at our event just as everything's going down in Ukraine. He was making sure his family was safe, and he showed up to our Zoom call. And it's like, hello, here's the real world coming into our homes and these things. So go ahead.
If you want, I will talk a little bit about it. Thank you, first of all, for the speech and presentation. But actually, we through this collaboration somehow, and Open Litter Map was involved in the beginning. We back then spoke with the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and so on, and actually they developed an app to identify mines in agricultural land. And I don't know, by now, there were like months ago, there were like 50,000 downloads. Probably today, I don't know, much more. So initially it was inspired also by Open Litter Map technology, and Sean was involved, but then they created in the technology in Ukraine, basically to identify, social people, everyone can identify mines and report them, and then the army come and collect them. Anyway, so that's related to Ukraine. But I want to touch another point that you mentioned. You mentioned other blockchain that are doing great stuff. And it came back, one of our first events, Scott Poyton, which is a leader in sustainability, said that climate change is a lack of collaboration. And so one thing, actually, I was in Blockchain Paris a couple of weeks ago, and one thing that came up with some blockchain, we said, you know what, let's create an impact event, cross-chain impact event. Each chain bring two, let's say, impact projects on this chain. The only condition is that they cannot say which chain they're working on. So what we promote the impact project itself, the story, as you said, which is very important, and not a specific chain, right? So all of us together come in to promote that. And I think that can be a good message for the blockchain ecosystem, that we don't need to fight between each other. We need to work together to make sure this technology will enable transparency, traceability, and so on. Anyway, just wanted to put that here. And that event will probably happen with Cardano4Climate and other blockchains in September or October.
I worked for IBM for 25 years. And earlier on in my career, we had a product that was called OS2 LAN server in the early 90s, and it was a LAN operating system. And on the cover, they put this bright yellow sticker that said featuring TCP/IP. And, we were selling the technology because it was cool technology at the time, and it was, in the news and people were talking about it. But when TCP/IP really became truly and broadly impactful is when it came off the cover of this box, right? That it became invisible. And this is true of all kinds of infrastructure like electricity and telecommunications. We've long since abstracted the complexity. When blockchain is going to be truly impactful as part of this Web3 platform as just a base state engine that we just assume is there, it will be invisible, right? And this whole discussion of platform, there's going to be lots of them because they're going to be tuned and tweaked for all kinds of different use cases that are in different geographies, and there's going to be different skill sets, and they will be composited into this group of this hybridization of a whole bunch of different platforms. And there may be some truth anchors that they all default to, but we're going to find mechanisms to move tokens across these environments. And will build tuned solutions that use the particular attributes of a platform. And at some point, yes, developers are going to kind of worry about, oh, I want to develop this. What's the best platform for that? But we'll make assumptions that they're all going to work together and that we can exchange value across them. And most people will even stop talking about this stuff because it'll just become part of base infrastructure, become invisible, and we can spend our time worrying about those higher level issues.
100%. Thank you for that.
So you also mentioned sharing on your podcast.
Sure.
That would be absolutely amazing.
I'd love, yeah. So if you've got a victim,
and vice versa, you know, like,
yeah, I'd love to. I'm always looking for really interesting niche stories to tell. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do is tell stories that should be told.
And here's Boaz. That was great timing there, changing your image. You know, another story that's being written in different languages, French and Swahili, and some English, and you know about their small projects. So yeah, there's definitely the beginning of some bestsellers, I think.
Je parle français, but my Swahili is terrible. So.
Oh well, there you go. Maybe you want to talk to Boaz and Yoram.
No, my Swahili is also terrible, so but I can.
French,
but
no
French, Spanish, yeah, Italian.
Well, Douglas, this has been absolutely amazing. Does anybody else have anything to ask Douglas?
Yeah, just so, Doug, how do you want people to reach out to you? Maybe you can, if you give me your contact, I can put it into our Telegram channel.
Yeah, it was on the title slide, but it's easy. I'm just Douglas at blockchainresearchinstitute.org.
Do you have a link to the slides, and can we share those?
I can provide you with the slides. Absolutely. Be happy to do that.
Is it okay to add those to our YouTube description so that people have access to those? Yeah.
Sure.
Because they've got links and stuff like that, or we can just add links. I want to make it easy though, because we're minimum staff, like I said.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, perfect.
Sure,
okay.
I'll send them over to you.
Good. And yeah, you make me very nervous about, especially when you said victim for the podcast. I hope somebody will step forward and begin. I want to be able to write. I'm more of an introvert and I love to write.
Yeah. So, well, I could do a podcast, and it's a venue that you can kind of sort through some of the ideas and figure out what, storylines resonate, and you can start to figure out an ordering of how to tell the story. And then you can document it as a case study. Right. And then you write the case study up, and then you distribute the case study, and then you find a conference and you present the case study. Right. So, view an interview as an opportunity to trial run various different storytelling themes and elements.
Wow, that'd be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I think there'd be some people, definitely some stories to be told in our community. Absolutely. So this is cool.
So
yeah, go ahead.
How do we arrange that? And can we have multiple?
Just send me a note. It takes an hour or someone time. We'll exchange potential questions, and I hit a record button over here, and voila, and it's the next day it's up on the, and I'll send you the links to the podcast.
Yeah, Melanie, I'll just put it in, I can reply in a note in the Telegram chat. Again, obviously thanking Doug for this presentation.
Yeah, and get me some information so I got some background so I can, pretend to be intelligent about it. Topic. So
good. I liked how you used our climate change, the challenge for Cardano from our website. Did you have that ahead of time, or was that just something you collected for your slides?
Well, I just threw some stuff together.
Yeah, no, that's very cool, because I saw it and was like, whoa, you've been doing your research. I guess Blockchain Research Institute, you better. But yeah, thank you for that.
Kind of what we do.
So Lawrence, you'll set this up, and you're fine if other people show up, because.
Well, all I'm saying is I'm just going to provide the contact info, so people can then reach out to Douglas. I don't want to be an intermediary. I don't need to be that. So they can watch this video. I think that'd be helpful, so they can get a sense of who Doug is. They can check out his podcasts. Again, I've listened to some of them. They're awesome. And then if they're comfortable, then they can reach out to Doug and say, hey, I've got an idea, a story, and they can collaborate. They can figure out.
Well, I'm thinking this story in particular, and if we did this, continue to co-write this story as Cardano4Climate, we can have other people join in and learn from it, make it broader than just say me talking to you, Douglas. Is it possible to have multiple people, almost like a Twitter
Absolutely.
space?
We could do, too many voices gets a little noisy, but
Yeah.
certainly, we can do, 3 of us would be easy.
Okay, awesome. That would be
Yeah,
great.
these are conversations, right? They're
Yeah.
people sitting around discussing a story or telling a story.
Fabulous. Okay, let's do it. Okay, thanks, Newman. Ciao. Yeah, we have Project Catalyst Town Hall coming up, so a few people will be dropping off.
Okay.
I really do want to thank you for this. I am going to stop the recording right now and